The Terrifying Lies Podcast, with music and stories by Craig Nybo. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Terrifying Lies Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Nybo. It's good to have you here. I want to thank every listener who tunes in, shares the show, and keeps the spirit alive. If you want to help keep this show rolling, consider backing it by subscribing at patreon.com/terrifyinglies. Your support keeps the lights on and the stories coming. I'm grateful for every backer who helps this stay in the game. I want to give you some good news and some bad news. For the past 24 years, I and some friends have thrown this killer event called the Gangrene Comedy Festival. It was a surreal experience where we featured every oddity you can imagine on stage, including pirates, a Bigfoot hard rock band, luchador wrestlers, square dancers, live chickens, a live motorcycle daredevil jump, and way more. Well, the bad news is that you might have missed out on all this live fun because we just did our last show in September of 2025. But here's the good news. As a band, we are not finished. We planned a series of micro concerts that we will be throwing here in Layton, Utah at a small 90-seat venue. The band is called Rust Monster. Now, although these concerts won't feature the full glory of a Gangrene festival, we will absolutely keep the same eccentric fun in the shows. If you live in the area and want to get to these concerts, the best way is to friend me on Facebook, Craig Nybo, or follow the Rust Monster Band, also on Facebook. I'll also get a website up with a calendar eventually. Until then, I'll keep you posted on Facebook. Well, enough of this. Let's get on with the story. Before we get started on today's story, I want to remind you to leave a positive review of the podcast. I'm not lying. Positive reviews really do help shows like Terrifying Lies stay alive. If you've ever thought, man, I like Craig Nybo's podcast so much that I'm going to leave a 5-star review and haven't done so, now is the time. It only takes a minute. Just a fair warning, this is part 5 of a 10-part story. If you start here, you might be a bit confused. I encourage you to go back to part 1 and start there. Previously on Poison Nickels Across the Universe, on the brink of destruction at the hand of their mortal enemies, the alien race called the Ice Beetles send a crack team of heroes into space on a salvaged Earth vessel to try and find allies for their cause. Now in space, they've discovered that voles, their mortal enemy, have stowed away in the ship. After a mighty battle, they have trapped the voles. Meanwhile, another ship traveling in the intergalactic shipping lane has spotted them. There will be an encounter. Will the astronauts aboard the ship be friends or foes? Well, you'll have to listen to find out. I now give you Poison Nickels Across the Universe, Part 5 of 10. See you on the other side. Stig finished welding shut the last of the 3 access doors to the storage facility that contained the vole nest. He hoped he had shut off most of the airflow into the room, but he couldn't be sure. His only hope was that the voles would glut on the supplies in the storage facility and multiply until they smothered themselves. He knew such a scenario was nothing more than a fool's dream, but he more than wished a slow, isolated death upon every one of the creatures. He put his welding equipment away in a tool room on his way back to the lab where he had been building musical instruments for the Poison Nickels. Colonel Chi had notified him that he was to begin music lessons that afternoon. The lab stood in shambles, discarded parts covering every work surface. Tools pushed off to the side, rake-drawn plans draped over tabletops, math calculations scrawled on walls. Stig had worked in a flurry to develop instruments that would complement Gorn's songs. He'd studied the reels delivered in constant feed onto the screen in his lab. directly from the ship's historical records. Stig had immersed himself in the musical history of the planet Earth. He knew about blues from a place called the Deltas of Louisiana. He knew about blues developing into rock and roll. He knew about rock and roll subgenres such as heavy metal, new wave, punk, and art rock. He familiarized himself with as many Earth-being entertainers as possible. The Ramones, Blue Oyster Cult, Barry Manilow, Sonic Prophecy, and Primus. He paid special attention to the aesthetics of their music, to the counts, the measures of rhythm and pitch, the abilities of such bands to craft songs that moved forward, driving to climaxes and tapering off into satisfying conclusions. At first, he tried to emulate instruments of Earth with pipes to blow into and strings to pluck, but it soon became clear that ice beetle anatomy lacked the biomechanical functions and dexterities needed to deploy notes from such devices. So Stig had improvised, using ice beetle anatomy as a guide. He'd based the Poison Nichols' instruments on devices his species used regularly back on Hull, on agricultural tools, on machinery, on mining apparatuses, even on weapons, although soldiers of the Order of the Shrievers preferred to fight rake to rake without the impairing encumbrance of weapons. In the end, Stig had produced a set of 5 instruments, each designed around one of the Poison Nichols' personalities.
Excellent work, Stig,
Chi said, taking Stig by surprise. Stig looked up from his work. Chi stood just inside the lab's entrance. He looked over the 5 instruments Stig had created, masterpieces in both ingenuity and aesthetics, sleek and complicated, fixed with vacuum tubes, orbs, and gears. Nishing had done well to order the Ice Beetles' best mechanic onto this detail.
I need you to delineate personal practice and band rehearsal schedules. We must become proficient at your machines.
Stig nodded, accepting the order. An Earth voice, windy and foreign, came over the ship's PA system. Winkle had taken the liberty of applying his Ice Beetle translation protocol to all automated in-ship announcements.
Incoming communication.
The Earth voice said.
There's an incoming communication. Please report to the bridge to intercept incoming communication.
The message repeated. Chi took the compot from his exoskeletal pocket and spoke into it.
Winkle, Nasher to the bridge.
He rushed out of the lab into the hallway and headed toward the bridge. Colonel Chi of the Shrievers, commanding officer of the small messenger detachment under orders from General Nishang of the Ice Beetles and leader of the Poison Nichols, the first rock and roll band in the history of Planet Hull, didn't know whether to stand or sit. He didn't know how to hold his rakes or whether to turn his face upward or to glance at the floor. Never had any ice beetle made contact with an alien being, and yet here he was, standing on the bridge of an Earth vessel, a hailing alarm whirring on and off, the first of his kind to see the face of a being from another planet.
Are you ready to answer the hail?
Winkle said, a rake over the button that would enable visual contact.
Put him on the screen,
Chi said, pushing himself up from his chair. He decided standing was more appropriate. Winkle pushed the button. The enormous screen milked over and became a video feed from the hailing ship. The face that appeared on the screen was so misshapen and out of line that she wondered if he was looking at the creature's face at all, or another part of the alien's anatomy. The bridge of the alien ship teemed with activity. Alien creatures from different planets, each more eccentric looking than the last, sat at their own control stations. It was clear to Chi that this creature and his crew had spent plenty of time in space. Chi and the alien creature looked at one another for a beat in silence. Winkle and Stig glanced at each other, waiting for their commander, or for the alien creature, to speak. Finally, it was Chi who opened his mouth.
Greetings from the Poison Nichols, Special Exploratory Detachment from the planet Tronon 4.
An orifice opened on the alien creature's misshapen head, answering the question as to whether Chi was addressing the alien's face or some other disgusting part of its anatomy. The creature spoke in a foreign language, a glom of hisses, clicks, and guttural grunts, It took a moment for Winkle's translation protocol to dial into the ship's computer and find the language.
Let's dispense with the pleasantries, you and I.
The creature said,
I have no interest in who you are or where you come from. I am Captain Gar of the Blood Drive. I expect you to allow me and one of my emissaries to board your ship. I warn you that we are a battle cruiser Class B.
Chi looked to Winkle for clarification on exactly what a Class B battlecruiser was. Winkle shrugged.
The torpedoes of the Blood Drive are trained on your signature. Should you resist my adjuration, I will have my gunner destroy you entirely, without even the slightest influx of my pulse rate.
Chi looked at the large bridge behind Captain Gar, gigantic and populated by a voluminous crew. He thought about deferring to Nasher, the fighting genius of the group, or to Winkle, the technological genius, for validation on exactly what he was supposed to do. But in the end, it came down to him, the leader of the Poison Nickels, to make the call. He hoped the others wouldn't balk at his decision, but with few weapons aboard the USS Arlington, Chi had no choice.
We grant entry to you and your emissary. I will personally meet you at the docking bridge in 30 minutes.
Make that 10 minutes, and come unarmed, or I will blast you against the wall.
Gar said, holding up a rather intimidating-looking weapon. Gar discontinued transmission. The screen blinked out. Chi turned to Winkle and Nasher. Both ice beetles looked back to him, their faces blank, waiting for orders.
We're not gonna let this creature roll over us,
Chi said.
I need both of you to get into hiding and plan a bushwhack while I deal with this space pirate. Don't contact me through my comm pod. Wait for me to contact you. I'll give him the impression that the ship is occupied only by Gorn, Stig, and myself.
Nasher nodded. The two ice beetles left the bridge. As Chi watched them depart, he knew that he wouldn't see them again until he had dealt with Captain Gar. Chi raised Gorn and Stig on his comm pod.
We have visitors,
he said.
They are hostile. I need us all to operate as though we are nothing more than a touring band from a planet known as Tronon 4. Is that clear? We are not to mention anything regarding our mission or of Hull. I repeat, say nothing of our mission or of Hull.
Both Gorn and Stig responded to Chi's orders. Chi dropped his comm pod back into his exoskeletal pocket and took a deep breath. He'd dealt with many enemies before, but he was about to enter uncharted territory. Gar's ship dwarfed the Earth vessel and, judging from the live feed from the Blood Drive's bridge, the pirate captain employed a sizable force of thugs. It was time for diplomacy and strategy. Chi knew there would be no way to take Gar or the Blood Drive in a head-to-head slam-up. Chi took a moment to collect himself, then left the bridge and headed to the docking station. The USS Arlington jounced as the Blood Drive's docking bridge made contact with an external port door. A series of hissing linkages latched onto the outer hull of the Earth vessel. Atmospheric pumps filled the elongated docking port, a truncating appendage extending from the Blood Drive to the USS Arlington with air. Chi stood in the hallway and looked through a window in the airlock door. The end of the long atmospheric tube extending outward from the Blood Drive attached to the outside of the USS Arlington. He waited for the decompression chamber to fill with atmosphere. The external airlock hissed and chunked open. Atmosphere from the docking tube wheezed into the decompression chamber. The outer airlock door opened on its mighty hinges and two figures entered the ship. Chi recognized the first as Captain Gar with his misshapen head and bruise-colored skin. Though Gar stood slightly shorter than the average ice beetle, he made up for it in undulating muscle and a sense of foreboding that came from the core of his frame. Gar's emissary towered over him, her black hair tied behind her back, her face fixed with an instinctual sense of rage, as if she had never been the recipient of even a single act of kindness. She opened the inner airlock and the two pirates exited the decompression chamber and stepped into the corridor. The tall female closed the decompression chamber airlock and fixed a keypad to the door. The device seemed to attach magnetically to the metal just above the door's locking mechanism. She punched a 7-digit code into the keypad. A series of clicks and chirps indicated that the decompression chamber's airlock could not be accessed without a security sequence.
We expect access to all areas of this petty ship,
Gar said, speaking into a microphone attached to a speaker on his chest. The speaker translated his speech.
Although I alone have the power to pound you into paste. Right here on the deck floor, I will leave the enjoyment of pulverization to my emissary, Ennead, should you not comply.
Gar gestured toward the towering woman, a step behind him. She glowered an even fiercer expression down at Chi. Chi didn't feel fear for the pirate or his emissary. Gar had never experienced the fighting spirit and technique of an ice beetle Shriever. But Chi had to be realistic. He'd seen a bridge full of crew aboard the blood drive. Where he felt he could take either Gar or Ennead in one-on-one combat, the poison nickels could never stand against a full crew of thugs.
Take me to your bridge,
Gar said. Chi cocked his head to one side and squinted at Gar. For a moment, he stood that way, not backing down, just looking at the alien pirate. Gar drew a weapon from a holster on his hip and aimed it at Chi.
To your bridge, now!
Chi turned and led the two pirates away from the docking port, hoping that Winkle and Nasher were concocting a plan. Winkle and Nasher hid behind a tower of storage containers strapped to the back wall of a cargo hold. The hold was situated just a few yards up the hall from the airlock through which Captain Gar and Ennead had boarded the USS Arlington. Although the two hiding ice beetles could hear some kind of verbal exchange between Chi and the space pirates, neither of them could make out the details of the conversation. And so they had stayed in hiding, biding their time until they could make their way to the airlock. Finally, Chi led the space pirates away from the airlock and down the hall toward the open entrance to the hold. Winkle and Nasher held their breath as 3 sets of footsteps approached the open chamber. They hoped that the pirate captain wouldn't insist on an in-depth inspection of the hold, at least not yet. If Chi could get the pirates to focus on going directly to the bridge, it would buy Winkle and Nasher time to set their plan, as thin as it was, in motion. Captain Barr barked orders, threats, and profanity at Chi all the way up the hall, right past the cargo hold entrance, and off toward the bridge. Winkle and Nasher breathed sighs of relief. They waited behind the storage containers for a good minute before working their way out of their cramped hiding places. Nasher moved to the cargo hold exit and checked the hallway. He looked both ways for any sign of movement. Satisfied with silence, except for the constant drone of the ship's systems, he ducked into the corridor, Winkle in tow, and moved to the airlock, an impressive metal door fixed with a single window that stared into the decompression chamber. Beyond the airtight room, through another door, a long, truncating tube full of artificial atmosphere led across space to the blood drive. The space pirates had fixed a 10-digit keypad to the locking mechanism of the airlock. Each button on the keypad was marked with a unique alien symbol. A blank readout mounted to the metal just above the keypad had 7 separate indicator registers.
We need to get through this door,
Nasher said.
And go where? Directly into a ship full of pirates?
We'll take weapons and learn the basic mechanics of Earth beings' high-velocity combustible projectile launchers. There are a few in one of the storage holds.
Winkle's eye bones slanted upward. He hadn't fought in a battle for a long time. He hoped it wouldn't come to that. Besides, ice beetles preferred rake-to-rake combat and rarely used weapons of any kind. But perhaps it was time to escalate to a more stable playing field.
Go after the weapons. I will stay and study this apparatus.
Winkle inclined his head toward the security panel. Without another word, Nasher wheeled away and ran up the metal hallway, his hind rakes clicking on the floor as he moved off into the dim. Winkle looked at the keypad and at the 7 readouts, each one the appropriate size for one of the alien symbols. Although boarding the blood drive didn't seem to be a reasonable tactical move, getting the airlock open would present more options than going up against Gar and his formidable emissary. Chi escorted Gar and Inyad along the winding crosshatch of corridors through the innards of the ship. The tarnished and, in some places, rusty walls along the corroded metal floor caused Gar and Inyad to shoot askance looks at each other more than once as they passed through the USS Arlington's decrepit features. Gar glanced into as many rooms as he could, those with ports broken open, falling, slanted in their hydraulic tracks. Some of the rooms seemed to be quarters, long abandoned. Others appeared to be storage facilities stacked with molding crates, the smell of spoil wafting from their open ports.
What kind of ship is this? And what manner of mission are you and your crew engaged in? Speaking of your crew, where are they?
Gar said, slashing with his words.
We are a poor traveling group of entertainers,
Chi said.
We've come to the stars in search of fame and fortune.
Gar laughed, his voice booming down the corridor.
Insects? For entertainment?
He said.
I suppose if I had the sun in an oversized magnifying glass, I could find some form of entertainment in you.
Not understanding the reference, Chi shook his head.
And what manner of entertainers may you be? Jugglers? Illusionists? Mimes?
Musicians,
Chi said. Gar stopped and put his meaty hands on his hips. Chi walked on for a few steps before noticing that the pirate had halted. He stopped, turned around, and fixed Gar with an expression that he hoped didn't convey his anger. Inyad stood behind her captain, her face all twisted up, her upper lip quivering as if she intended to wield some kind of power over Chi with nothing but her leer. Gar looked Chi up and down, his mouth slanted into a curious smirk.
Musicians?
He said.
Insect musicians from planet... what did you say?
Tronon 4.
Chi said, rolling his eyes, waiting to get on with whatever Gar had in mind.
A band of Beatles from the planet Tronon 4. And what do you call yourselves? The Beatles?
Gar laughed out loud in great big guffaws, his crisp laughter ringing off the metal walls and bouncing in eerie, reverberating voices down the length of the corridor. Inyad's expression remained stoic and aimed straight at Chi. Chi waited for the pirate captain to stop laughing. The process took a few chortles and ramp-ups to belly laughter, several slaps on the stomach, a few winky stares up and down Chi's body, even a slap on Inyad's shoulder, which the oversized woman didn't seem to appreciate. Finally, Gar came back to the ground, settling down into a broken rhythm of occasional chuckles.
We call ourselves the Poison Nickels,
Chi said. Gar put a hand to his forehead and shook his head back and forth, a few fresh chuckles issuing forth.
The Poison Nickels,
he said.
What does that even mean?
Chi felt his patience crumble away. He wanted to rush the pirate, show him exactly what the Ice Beetles were capable of, but he feared the numbers in Gar's crew.
We are Ice Beetles, not the Beatles, and we are musicians. Other bands have made names in the universe such as Captain Fishman and the Authority and Funk Toast. There's no reason why an Ice Beetle band from Tronon 4 can't make a name for itself. You forcibly boarded our ship. We have nothing for you to steal. If you like, I could take you to the bridge where you can check the ship's records. You'll find that I'm telling you the truth.
Gar went silent and cocked his head to one side. Inyad punched a fist into her open hand, making a crisp slapping sound.
Fuck toast,
Gar said.
Are they playing the Pan-Galactic Prom Show?
What's the Pan-Galactic Prom Show?
She asked. Gar spread his hands expressively. His eyebrows burst upward in surprise.
You say you're a touring band, and you don't even know about the Pan-Galactic Prom Show? It's only the biggest event in the known galaxy. Why, we've even considered going ourselves this year. That wasn't until we learned that both of the acts were Earthling bands, Funk Toast and that Pop-Tart Fever. I hate Earth music.
Are we gonna just stand here and talk about music? Or do you want me to take you and your delightful date to the bridge?
Gar looked up at Inyad. She looked down at him. She couldn't be sure, but he thought he spotted a ghost of a smile cross over the oversized woman's lips. Sickened by the thought of the malevolent duo actually being a couple, she grunted, turned away, and continued his long trundle up the hallway toward the bridge. Gar and Enid fell in tow. Gar laughed several times as they trekked onward, saying repeatedly,
The poison nickels. That'll kill him.
Cheese swallowed hard as they neared the bridge. He hoped that Winkle and Nasher had concocted some kind of plan. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If you want to help keep this show alive, visit patreon.com/terrifyinglies and consider pledging even $1 a month. Don't forget to leave a positive review. It helps more than you know. Take care out there in this tumultuous world. Until next time, I bid you sweet dreams, or should I say, sweet nightmares. This has been the Terrifying Lies podcast. Please, come again. You're welcome here.